to do something that is different. And you look at all the heroes, and that's what they do.
The commitment to listen with the same passion with which we want to be heard.
In terms of who do you want to be, articulate that. Find the words behind that. Who do you want to be?
Welcome to another episode of the DNA of Purpose podcast. This is the place where we ask the question, in the face of rapid change, how can entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers foster unbreakable trust, adapt, embrace courage, and mobilize humanity in a chorus of purpose-driven action to reshape the future? Today, we will be exploring the theme of courage, that fire inside you that propels you forward regardless of your fear, that invites you to gaze into the future in order to take bolder risks today. Courage is the irrational trust in your instinct, the fortitude to chase the choiceless choice, and the conviction to let your voice shake in the name of the change you seek to see and become in this world. Courage is more than a feeling. It's the catalyst for a purpose-driven life, which is why I am beyond excited to have Ryan Berman back on the podcast for a second time. Now, to give you some background context, Ryan has made decoding courage his business. He has spent more than 20 years in the courageous idea space and is a true pioneer in the world of courageous storytelling and change management. In that time, he has had his methods featured in Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Inc., and Forbes, just to name a few. He is also the author of Return on Courage, a business playbook for change. In fact, in our first interview, we literally turned the book inside out. And if you would like to listen to that interview before or after today's episode, you can find it right here in the show notes. I also want to say that Ryan is seriously one of the kindest and coolest people I know. I get to speak to a lot of amazing humans via this platform. And although Ryan is many miles away and really we've only spoken a few times, he's the kind of person who just instantly feels like a friend. And of all of the things listed on his stellar biography, that is probably by far his greatest attribute, and I know that many others would agree with me. In today's conversation, Ryan and I continue the theme of courage, and yet in many ways we traverse into the nuances of how this conversation has evolved through and in the aftermath of the pandemic, in addition to exploring some of the more personal ways, the more vulnerable ways courage can show up in our lives, inviting us into epic transformations. We explore courage as a trainable and necessary skill and a crucial aspect of leadership development as we move into the future. We look at courage as a mindset, enabling us to have one foot in two camps. One being to stay in momentum with day-to-day operations while having the courage to be on the lookout for what's coming next. We also explore the many ways we can work with fear as the teacher that invites us into bold decision-making and action-taking. And really, that is just the beginning. Now, as a side note, you may hear one or two fancy swish sound effects throughout the podcast to create seamless transitions in our audio experience today. We had a few internet dropouts during the conversation, so this was a clever way to smooth things out for an easy listening experience. And so, get ready for one hell of a courageous ride with the one and only Ryan Berman. Welcome to the DNA of Purpose podcast. It is such an honor to have you join me for the second time, beaming in all the way from California, Ryan Berman.
Oh, it's so good to be back. And we were chatting before we started here. I love that I'm back and I'm very curious. And I think this is part of the why this works. You go on your own journey and hopefully we're never done with growing and learning. I'm curious from your lens, what's different since we last left off, because we have not spoken in 1,000 days. The last time we spoke, I mean, we've exchanged emails here or there, and it's always cool to learn what's going on the other side of the world. And I hope you feel the same way about what's going on over here. And by the way, yes, we did watch. I was very interested in the Women's World Cup, and mad love to your team on the way that they performed.
Go the Matildas.
I was up at 3 a.m. watching their games. I really was. That's how bonkers I am about the sport. But it was so awesome to watch. Was it? I know you're the one asking the questions here, but I'm curious. How did the whole country rally around this?
Absolutely. And I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge soccer fan, but Australia loves sport. And it was so beautiful to see here in Australia, really the rise of a little Matildas movement is the only way I can describe it, to the point where my daughter, Tiger Lily, is 5 and she's in kindy, and they even had a day at school that was dedicated to the Matildas where they all dressed up in the green and gold. And, I think that the most beautiful thing is what we're seeing is all of these little girls signing up for soccer. And the Matildas really, when I say it was like a movement, they did facilitate a movement because it's really putting women's sport front and centre, which is such an important conversation.
Well, as a words guy, it's see it, be it, right?
So, Ryan, I'd love to dive in to the first question with you today, which is kind of a question within a question. Now, I know you're also a podcast host, and so we both spend a fair bit of time asking questions. And in our case, we both get to direct those questions to, in your words, some of the bravest, bulliest, and brainiest people on the planet. What I'm curious to know is what these great minds ask themselves. And so, what question are you currently pondering that is guiding your work forward at this particular point in time?
Great question. Love the question. Not just because it's about questions, but I think it actually starts with, do you have the right question? Right now, there is a particular question that seems to be the next question for me to address. And for those of you who don't know my background or my world or my business, I've spent the last 5 years in the courageous business arena. It's working with courageous leaders. It's working on courageous ideas. It's helping companies with their courageous pivot. We always like to say, if you're stuck, if you're scared, if you're stale or you're spinning, that's when our phone should ring. It's a really fun place to be. And like you said, we're both podcast hosts. I've now done, I think, 125 episodes. I'm sure you're getting up there yourself. And you've had these intimate conversations. Where are you? What number are you on?
I'm up to 110
right
episodes
there.
now. Yeah.
You're right there.
Yeah.
So, the more you do it, the more it's kind of like a waterfall effect. You're building off of what you're learning, and you're hoping that you keep growing, and you know when you feel like the energy and where it's taking you. Very long setup. The question that I'm asking myself right now comes off the insight that it can be really lonely to be you. It can be lonely to be you navigating a company. And the higher up in an organization you get, the lonelier it seems to be on who can you trust. By the way, it can be lonely to lead a family. It can be lonely in other parts of your lives, not just in the workforce space. So my honest question that I'm asking myself right now is, how am I going to start connecting all these people that I've met that are amazing and are brave and are vulnerable, and they should know each other. And I know I'm going to launch something soon called Courage Week. To me, it's the grace I'm giving myself is not what it can be in year one, but what it can be in year 10. And it's like you study this thing and you listen and you try to understand, like, oh wow, I know this sounds slightly audacious, but the world needs more courage. And so if I can connect the people that are actually leading the charge, and this is going to be a very Americanized goal, and so I acknowledge that. But one of the goals I have is to inspire 3.4 million people to be courageous. And where that number came from was just 1% of the US population, and starting there. And if I could get to those leaders, then like let's let them do the next layer, and so on and so on. So the question is, one, what's stopping me? What's in my own way from building that community? When will Courage Week be a live event? Like, I already know this September 6th through 8th, I'm going to put out content in the world. We're going to start there. On the 8th, we're going to have a live Courageous Action Chat. It'll be at 12 o'clock my time. Gosh, what time is that? I'm on PST. I hope you can join. You're always welcome to join and give a little insight of what's going on the other side of the world. But this is coming. But that's my question is, how do I make this real and give myself a little grace that it isn't going to be 5,000 people in week one? It could take a while.
Well, it's a movement we need today more so than ever before. Last time we spoke, as we mentioned before, it was, I believe, in the first few months of COVID. You'd written the book in 2019. And I guess at the time of writing the book, you had no idea just how significant courage was about to come in the context of the events of the world as they played out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I'd like to say I am a calculated crystal baller, but to predict a pandemic, and if I'm anything, I would say I'm an observationalist, and I'm curious to get your take on this. But my sense is the pandemic sort of forced not the early adopters, but the late adopters, and there's a lot more of them than there are early adopters, to short circuit their lives and figure out a way to stay relevant. For example, I love my parents, still alive, grateful for that. If they didn't figure out Zoom, like communication was over, right? So here's a great example of like you're 75 years old and you now have to learn a new behavior. And this is not just my parents, right? This is the story of many. So I think for one, a lot of the late adopters were forced to be like, wait a minute, this isn't, I'm missing something. I want to see my grandkids. What do I have to do? Okay, I can learn that. And in the past, they never would have gone there. Now at businesses, same thing, where I was very, very busy, where a lot of sort of lunch and learns and Zoom conversations. And, I joked that, I wasn't much of an, I mean, I hope I inspire, but I didn't see myself as a inspirational speaker. I saw myself as a conversational speaker because you were letting me into your house and we were having a conversation while that cat was behind you, doing what cats do. And it was a very different world. And in some ways, I think you got to be careful with COVID, but in some ways, I think the world, I think we showed our humanity in a better way. And I think that stayed for many people, where this work version of themselves that was fictitious, we kind of let our guard down a little bit and surrendered that person. And so, yes, the idea that people are open to change. There's no change without courage. I always say, you hear somebody that's like, it'll never be the same. And to me, same is the enemy of change. I mean, that's the question I would ask ourselves is, if you're still Well, it'll never be the same. Okay, catch yourself. Wait, same. Is it time to move on from that same? And a lot of times, if things are still the same, you gotta pivot. That's the business.
Absolutely. The only thing that's harder than change is becoming irrelevant, right?
Well, again, change is hard, but the hardships of not changing are far harder, right? And
Yeah.
so I think look, relevance has a place, and relevance, taking a break and chilling, mental health is relevant too. And I think this I'm air quoting, I'm not sure how much video people are going to see, but like the chase for relevance is exhausting too, right? So at some point, asking yourself, what do you stand for? What are you going for? Are you making decisions that are truly aligned with your values? Again, what is your purpose? Right? For me, at a micro level, I've already mentioned my kids. Raising good children and showing them what that might look like, a path, and being there when they need me and staying out of the way when they don't. Free range children is what I'm going for. My work life, and I'm sure you've read a few of my weekly doses of courage.
I
It's more
definitely
direct.
have.
It's more fastballs. It's more, again, I'm not trying to be all things to all people. I'm trying to find that 5% that want to go for it and give them just a little bit of a dopamine trip and energy. Why not you? By the way, if not you, seriously, then who? It has to be. It has to be you. Like, that's what's so great about your show. It has to be you. And if you don't do it, who's stepping up to do it?
Yeah,
That's where
absolutely.
that's where the joy for me comes. It's like when you meet somebody else like you that's going for it and putting something into the world, and you're truly trying to make your own dent in the world, and you've got lots of other people trying to do that too. Like, okay, are you as relevant as you'd like to be right now? This is when you get the podcast host asking the other podcast host a question, and I'm happy to answer that question too. But you get to go first.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting question because, as you know, I've taken pretty big hiatus from the podcast, and the reason for that was because I went through some personal things. Like, you can see this picture behind me, which is our beautiful friend Craig, who very suddenly went down with cancer and died literally within 3 months. And it was, amongst a few other things, it was quite a big journey because it also invited me into my own, what I call, I mean, obviously Craigie over here did pass away, but for me at a personal level, I went through my own death portal is what I would like to call it, where I literally had to stop, step back, really strip away anything that was no longer in alignment with my highest timeline, my highest potential for my life. And only I could answer those questions. But I think in losing a close friend and again, being close to death, all of a sudden you're like, time. I've got this much time on the planet, if I'm lucky, and who knows what might happen tomorrow. So I want to make sure that what I do today, what I do this week, what I do over the course of this lifetime is fully in alignment with the truest version of who I am. And so to come back to your question, in going through that experience and in taking a bit of a hiatus and stepping away from the podcast, it's only now that I've been able to really come back into this work, A, having had the time to really self-reflect, but B, with a renewed sense of purpose, because I'm here from a place of deep integrity, deep truth, and I've kind of reawakened the energy of this work. And so I believe that is allowing me to stay relevant because I'm being honest with what's relevant for me in my own energy. And from that place, you have a foundation of passion. Anything's possible.
And I think you're clearly honoring what Craig stood for, right? I mean, and alive and well. And it's crazy. You know, I definitely believe in the universe gives us what we need. And yes, and we are meaning making machines, no doubt, right? But two other moments, I think things happen in three. So Craig, hearing your story about Craig was actually the third for me today about something dying. And I'd say, and again, I want to be respectful and honor who Craig is in your life and how you carry forward what you need to carry forward into the reawakening, we'll call it. Now, these are going to seem slightly trivial, and I acknowledge that. For the last 3 years, I've been working on a soccer club here in San Diego. It's called San Diego Loyal. Major League Soccer is officially coming to San Diego in a year. San Diego Loyal was in the second league. Their chairman was my client. Today we announced that we are sunsetting the club at the end of the season. A death, a mourning. We had done everything right. We didn't cut corners. It was about community. When your club is called Loyal, every move we made was about growing loyalty. If it was going to grow loyalty, we would do it. And if it wasn't, we didn't do it. We didn't invest in that. So today was the day. With MLS coming, we tried everything to make it work. And our passion was for this market, San Diego. There wasn't an appetite to move the club to another city. And so we launched a video today from the chairman, from Andrew Vasiliadis, saying, this will be our last season. We don't want it to be a mourning. We want it to be a celebration. Come celebrate the rest of the way with us. So that was this morning, and my heart hurts from that. 2, I went to lunch today to my favorite salad place. Guess what happened when I showed up? There was a sign on the door that said, you know, unforeseen circumstances, and we're closed. Thank you, everyone, for everything you've done. Now, I'm not here to put my salad store next to Craig. Another death for me, another loss for me. And I keep coming back and looking at these moments, and as an optimist, trying to find, how do I turn these into positives, right? Where do I stay alive on these things? What space now opens up for me to try something new or to be uncomfortable, right? And to me, courage is that, right? It's looking at something in not the comfort zone, but the uncomfort zone. Again, I don't mean to be trivial on my lunch location.
No,
I will be okay.
No, not at all. And I think that again, in going through the experience that we went through, courage is everything. Because to the point I made before, we can't guarantee tomorrow. So how are we going to show up today? And courage is what underpins our best life. It's that simple. We need to get out there and take those risks, be them calculated, particularly in the context of a business conversation. But courage is what allows us to truly flourish, to truly shine. And if we're not brave enough to take those risks, we may get to the end of our days and wonder what could have been. And I don't want to live like that.
Well, or like slipping into monotony. Right. And like doing the same thing every day. And again, so for me, we're kind of back to your first question.
Yeah.
Right. I know it's time. I know it's time to build this community. I know there's so many people that I've met. There's something inside them that they want more. It's probably purpose. It's this feeling of belonging and a shared community that I know I now want to build. And it's in some ways over the last 5 years, from the book to my own podcast to a keynote or a workshop, you kind of go out in the world. You don't say this, but you're like, is this relevant? Do people need this? If I say it like this, does that land with you? Yes, no. Decision tree. Yes, no. Please, like, call me off if this is a waste of time. Yes, no. And it's like, yes. Every time it's been yes. New little, I wouldn't call it my mantra, because my OG mantra is patiently relentless, and I it does blend into this new line, which is, I'm sure you've heard of Carpe Diem, which is seize the day. And I'm playing around with Decennium Carpe. And Decennium Carpe is seize the decade. And so it gives myself grace. I'm not going to move at a glacial pace, but it does give me some grace to go 10 years from now. And it can't be the Ryan Berman show. It has to be about the community. How do I bring the right people together that will inspire each other and move each other and want to work with each other and spend time with each other, travel together, be honest with one another. And so that is the answer to the question. I don't know yet how it's going to come to life, but to me, it starts with Courage Week, and I'm going to have a national, maybe it'll be international, we'll call it International Courage Day, which I know I want to be September 6th, but I'll leave that as a little cliffhanger for me to come back on a third time as to why that day.
I do want to say that in that first conversation, and there will definitely be a third, but in the first conversation, we spoke in detail about your book, A Return on Courage, a business playbook for change. Now, I would recommend to all of our listeners, if you really want to get inside the nuts and bolts of courage, of course, jump on Ryan's website and grab the book. But you can also listen to that episode because it was an amazing episode and we really decoded courage. However, what I'm curious to understand today is, given the wake of a global pandemic, continued exponential progress, and now a once-in-a-generation shift in work patterns, how has that definition, A, stood the test of time, and B, how have your views on courage evolved?
When I reflect back at the definition of courage, and of course I don't totally remember how I set it up from our first conversation, but
it was knowledge, faith, and action.
Well, I have the 3 levers down.
Yeah.
I think the rationale behind why I took, it was like red pill, blue pill, and looked at it in the first place was the dictionary definition is the ability to do something that frightens you. And I didn't see how people really wanted to do that, especially at work. So yes, the first 6 months was looking at this definition and then coming up with a better, and it needed to be all 3 of the levers that you just said. There had to be knowledge, there had to be faith, and there had to be action. And no doubt, like even to this day, not only do we think that definition has sort of stood the test of time, it's also now the methodology we follow for our business at Courageous. So the consulting part of our business, and I'm going to try to do this in a non-selly way, but like
it's okay.
Everything we take on is in 3 parts. There's a knowledge gathering phase. Billy Collins is one of my partners. He runs the knowledge team. There's the faith building phase, which is phase 2 of any project. Why do you believe? Why should you believe? Can you make others believe? That's my side of the business. And then phase 3 is the action taking phase. This is run by a woman on my team named Nicole Miller. We call them mission of record, not agency of record. What's the mission that we're taking on? And then we start our discovery on the knowledge gathering. And once we've established that, it moves into the faith building side. And imagine like you're at a company now and deep down, you don't believe or you want to believe, but there's a conversation you're afraid to have. Or you're the leader and you're frustrated that you haven't been able to move people the way that you thought you could or should. Often we're brought in to help you clarify that narrative. And I'm not sure if you remember this. My background was advertising. Like
I do remember.
Paid,
yep.
Right, to tell the world these stories. And where my frustration began was, well, okay, company, you want me to tell a story to the outside world. Is it honest and relevant to what's happening on the inside? And then a lot of times my client, who's just, trying to keep their job and look good and progress, they're like, hey, come on, like, let me look into my CEO here. Like, can you help me or not? And I realized like the more we tell the world a story that might not be authentic to the inside, that's where the problem is. So yes, the definition still holds true. now more than ever, as you said, with the pandemic, I don't know if it's really behind us. I still know people today that got COVID here in the States. We need to unlock courage. And as you said, courage is a journey word, right? The destination is doing something meaningful. The definition is being relevant. And in business, you're even top of mind or you're getting left behind.
Ryan, to grasp the importance of courage, it's helpful to understand how we perceive change. Now, historically, we viewed change as linear, a gradual progression from, one point to another. But technology has ushered us into an era of exponential change. Now, we've all heard the word exponential, but it's helpful to know that while linear change is steady and predictable, exponential change can start subtly but swiftly lead to transformative shifts in a short span. Given this context, courage is no longer the realm of just pioneering change makers or innovative startup founders. It's become an indispensable leadership trait in order to be able to navigate a world of exponential progress that will just continue to evolve. So if courage is now an imperative, not just an option, how can leaders embed this quality into an organization's mindset as a trainable skill and as a mindset that, like a muscle, can be exercised?
Well, to answer this question, I'm going to ask you a question first. Okay. In your mind, how much do you think this comes down to the leader committing to courage, to committing to building the muscle?
I think it's all about leadership. In the sense
Agreed.
that, the leader ultimately has the power to influence the culture of the organization and to really embed into that organization practices, tools, rituals that enable them to again, view courage as something that can be exercised, in that we can train for it, we can work hard at it, and when we do, we actually get better in the process.
Courage is a prerequisite for change. And again, it does come directly down to the leader. Now, I understand how frustrating it would be if you're listening to this conversation and in your heart, your leader is fear-based. That leader is not courageous. Maybe they're on the other side of the brain and it's all about the money and the dollars and cents. That's a hard place to be. Again, one of the reasons I love my platform, and there's lots of little assets in there, from the book to emailing a podcast, right, to the weekly dose of courage, is I see myself as a pretty good first inning, to use an American term, on starting that conversation about courage. All I am is a permission for a hard conversation about change. Well, the good news is sometimes leaders are not bosses and bosses are not leaders. So you run a team. What are you going to do to inspire them? What do you need to operationalize to create the behavior that you want at your organization? I mean, the multiplier on when you're actually the leader on this one, you've got people that are excited and inspired and they're holding hands and they want to go. And when it's not that top tier, but you still have it, this is a great time for you to experiment and test and be like, do I have what it takes to motivate and inspire? Will people follow me? As you know from the book, I'm a crazy person on values. Right? I always say, how valuable are your values? Or maybe there is what's your rally cry in your why? Is there truly a rally cry in that why? So every month, are you bringing that up? Are you rewarding people when you see the values at play? To me, that's how you start to operationalize these behaviors that you want. Then it's not about like, did we crush it every time? It's like, are we on our path? To your point, progress is not a linear thing. So I think sometimes when fear wins and the leader is afraid, or they're trying to hit a number, or maybe that's just they just don't see how courage is relevant. That's a hard place for you to be if you do. Look, if you're listening to this show, obviously that already says so much about what you care about, right? The goal is to design a life where other people are aligned and that's with you on that shared reality. I always talk about Patagonia as a company because nobody ever questioned what they were signing up for there, right? If you were signing up for Patagonia, what's the first question they're going to ask you before you ever start?
Well, whether
you,
you go. Sorry,
are you here to save the world?
That's what I was going to say.
Right?
The same thing. Yeah.
Right? Like, do you want to save the world?
Yeah.
If you don't want to save the world, do you think they're going to hire you?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. So
Not a chance.
this is dating. That's all it is. And if the company is really clear on their purpose and what this tells you, and I'm not asking anyone that's listening to quit your job. However, as you think about designing the life you want to live, you're never being interviewed by another company. You're always interviewing them to see if your values align with theirs. For courageous, we always say we want to fight fear, we want to create change, and we want to save humanity. And we think that like people will be happier. We truly believe that courage can set you free. We get to be fear fighters every day. And our job is to transfer the light from what we know to you so you can go out and inspire and lead and be clear. And it is impossible to be courageous on a cloudy day. You've got to be clear on what you stand for. And if you don't know what you stand for, you'll never really know when to take a stand.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm a leader and I'm listening, I'm wondering, is there a space in leadership where you kind of have to have one foot in two camps? And to frame that up for you, I still speak as a part of the Future Crunch team, and we talk about something that's called the February 29th mindset. And this is something that you will be familiar with because we all...
Tell me more.
Because we all experienced it. And this is the idea that, essentially just before February 29, and this is back in 2020, we were going along, business as usual. Everything was the same. And then all of a sudden, kaboom. We start to hear about this thing called COVID. Now, in the early part of that journey, it was kind of like, okay, well, the most responsible reaction here is to sort of tone things down a little bit, to say this could be huge, but there are plenty of reasons why this might not happen, and let's, not be naive about this. Then all of a sudden, we realize the full extent of COVID. Everybody's in the supermarket buying all the toilet paper. The world's gone crazy. So my point here with the February 29th mindset is that in living in today's world where these new disruptions might come flying in at any moment, in order to be courageous, in order to really be ready to take these calculated risks in leadership, we need to be able to hold two ideas in our head at the same time, that things could stay the same, that things that, we need to continue to manage the operations of the business, the day-to-day, keep the stability in the framework of the business, while at the same time envision another potential reality, which could include massive disruption where we're going to have to act with courage at speed.
Okay, so one, I do believe that a courageous leader is holding two ideas at all times.
Yeah.
I think a fear-based leader can't get beyond the one idea. This is where the spinning is happening, right? They're thinking about speculating on am I going to keep my job? Or where is the fear growing inside their minds? And if you can never get through that fear, you never get to the second idea, right? If you're on the rudder as a leader at your company, your job is to hold the ship steady. And what most leaders then do, not most, what some leaders then do is they bite their lip because they feel they need to come out strong, that they've got it. When really they need to share that. That's the vulnerable part. Hey, team, here's where I'd like us to get to. I actually don't totally know how to chart this course. Together, I'd like us to chart this course. Here's where we are today. How are we going to get through this to get on the other side of this thing? If we don't pivot, that's when we're really in trouble. But usually what we do is we keep it to ourselves. So you might remember this from the book. I'm not totally sold on the word leadership, and I'm giving leadership a hard time as a word.
Believership, if I remember correctly.
It's believership. Right? It's believership. It is a shared belief across the leaders. And as a leader, you even make believers or fake believers. Fake believers are not bad people. Like, they should go do something that they believe in. And often what happens in many companies, when somebody does come in and spark change, you might hear from another employee who's been there for 12 years, 14 years. Oh, this used to be like a family. But there's nothing wrong with that. That person has to ask themselves, do they still believe in where this company is going? I'm not behind the curtain at Peloton. It used to be a very entrepreneurial business. For them to grow at the level that they're growing, it seems to be moving more into a managerial camp. Okay. The entrepreneur, the owner, that might not be the place for that person anymore. They should go find something else they believe in. So, again, I think on the courage front, hey, how do you inspire that team? How do you get that shared purpose where we're being vulnerable, we're being honest, and today, this is where we are. Here's where I'd like to go. Anybody see that as the wrong place? We feel like this is the right place we want to go. Okay, how are we going to get there together? Let's not pretend like we all have all the answers. Let's start working towards that. That co-creation, that for the whole team, is why people stay. If I just told you how to do your job for the next 3 years, you'd be like, get me out of here. He or she just micromanages me. Right. So I think that's part of all this. And that's how you also create a great believership. And then hopefully people stick around and they make their own.
So, Ryan, I'm curious to get inside how you personally deal with fear. Now, I know from previous conversations with you and reading through your LinkedIn profile, I mean, you walk your talk. You're not just a thought leader. You've led huge teams. You've managed teams of, I believe, up to 70 or 80 people at different points in time. So when you're talking about leadership, you've been in the trenches on this particular topic. And so I'm really curious to understand where you've experienced this fear. What do you do at a personal level to transmute that, to kind of reset your mindset and step into courage? How do you go through that shift at a personal level?
I think the business I grew up in taught me to always flip it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like conventional wisdom, say no to that. So if you zig, I zag. Right. And my mentors taught me that. And at the time it was about storytelling, right? Like the story has to continue to point forward. It has to be, where's the unique spin on that story? And so what a surprise that my look at fear is I'm not much of a FOMO guy. I'm a FOMF guy, fear of missing fear. Like I start to get worried when I don't have a fear.
So you'd view fear as the teacher, fear as the guide.
Yeah. Yes. And remember, I got to go on this amazing journey and interview all these cool people for Return on Courage. So one of my favorite ones was the astronaut from Virgin Galactic. Her name's Loretta Hidalgo, super inspiring woman. And she acknowledges as the rocket ship is shaking and her body is now shaking because of it. She's like, fear it's evolutionary. It's just a bit of information and it's just trying to do its job, which is to keep you safe. And all I can do is say, thank you, fear. Like, thank you for being there. I acknowledge you for what you're attempting to do, but I must do this. I must go through this if I'm going to be successful on my purpose. So, you grab all these mentors along the way and you become a mosaic and you connect and collect those thoughts. And that was one of them. It's like, hey, what's my biggest fear right now? Like, if I'm really going to be a fear fighter, and even the conversation we had earlier about Courage Week and building that community, I still have fear. I'm like, will people want to show up? Will they actually give me that opportunity to bring them together? I still have stories that I tell myself that no, right? And then it's like, okay, this isn't about me. This is about the community. Can I bring these people together and then let them do what they're doing? So I acknowledge the fear, and even talking about it, I call it state it and create it, helps me shrink down the fear little by little by little.
Is there anything that you find unnerving about the current context of artificial intelligence, climate change?
AI is interesting to me because I think it seems to be an ally in helping me explore certain arenas. I think the idea that prompt engineer is like a real job.
It's cool, huh?
The irony, though, right? We're right back to where we started, right? On knowing what question, right? How to bend words to get a different response. And so I think, if I'm very honest, deep down in my core, I don't feel fear that I'm going to be replaced by AI. And I don't feel, it feels slimy for me to ask AI to write a book, which I've had that conversation with myself. Like, I know the next book I want to write. And I almost feel like I'm cheating the rite of passage part by utilizing AI. Now, the other people would be like, you're crazy. You could actually ask AI what the chapter should be. How are you utilizing it to save time? And so, again, I think there's this back and forth on how AI can be my friend and be my ally, knowing when to utilize it, and then realistically being in a creative arena, being realistic on where does it stop and where do I pick up, and how do I make sure this voice that I've been working on over the last 5 years continues to sound like me. That's important for me as well. Climate change, we are clearly messing this place up. And
I believe you guys in particular have had the hottest July ever.
Not surprised by that. This past week here, we had Hurricane Hillary in San Diego. Now it didn't hit, thankfully, the way they thought it was going to hit, but the idea that that's even a reality. I just saw some video online about if you shrunk the existence of the world down to 24 hours, people have only been on it for 3 seconds, and we're ruining the world. We might not get to the 4th second. This is like a whole nother hour.
Wow, that's a perception shift, isn't it, when you think about it that way?
Right? If you just shift it down to how long the Earth has been around and how long humans have been around, in a 24-hour period, we've been here for 3 seconds. And there's fear and concern we might not make it to the 4th second. Check out that video. That's a worthy Google to check out.
Yeah, I'll pop it in the show notes too. Yeah. So I know in listening to a few interviews, you really are the, eternal optimist. It's something that I love about you. I think your courage fuels that optimism. And so given we've just discussed, the implications of climate and AI and all of those sort of things, I'm really curious to understand how brands can really, particularly with climate, seize the opportunity of fostering and adopting climate adaptability into their business strategies.
I think it's coming. I think it's slower, obviously, than anybody wants. And I don't think this is just my optimism showing. I will say it's a choice and it's a commitment and it starts from the leader. And you can't just put out a press release and say you're saving anybody. There has to be a true commitment. In fact, it should almost be the opposite. Like, how about figure out where you can be part of the solution and invest in that? And there's plenty of ways for your story now to make it out in the universe. Maybe you're not the one seeding the story. Just let the story take off the way it's supposed to. This is code for do the right thing, right? It's figure out where you can make your own dent and do good and be good. And I know there's some big companies that we're working with that say they want this to be something that they bring to the forefront. Okay, are you putting your money where your mouth is? Now, I'll tell you the good news is the next generation, the future CEO, won't put up with this shit. Excuse my French. So the new companies that will be formed are those new leaders that are talking about, hey, this has to change. It will change. It's coming. It should have been done a long time ago. And to be honest, there's certain places where I don't have the solution. I just know that those commitments are there, and we're hopefully slowly working our way towards, okay, let's figure this thing out.
And I think, in leaning back in to what you were talking about before, I think it was in relation to leadership, but essentially what you were saying is what is happening on the inside of a business congruent with the story you're telling, with what is happening on the outside of the business. And, here we enter into discussions around greenwashing and all sorts of other things. But I think integrity in influence is such a core component in this conversation, particularly when you're looking at branding strategy.
I actually wonder how many leaders think they're doing the right thing and don't even realize that they haven't committed the way they said they should or could, right? Because they just have so much stuff on their plate and they're overwhelmed and they're trying to keep share. And so it's funny, the next project that I'm just starting on the writing side. And so I would say I have a couple other like little books coming out along the way.
Exciting. I love that.
The big one is really looking at how companies will operationalize good. Are they just talking about it or are they truly doing it? Right? It's not storytelling anymore. It's story living. They're truly living.
Yeah, story showing. Yep.
Right. And to me, it's like they got to live it. It can't just be a marketing thing. Marketing cannot save the day at the end of the conveyor belt anymore. It has to be baked in to what they're bringing to the world.
So important. So I want to dive into the world of a concept that I heard you reference called data obesity. Now, this presents, I think, maybe two main concerns. Firstly, we're obviously living in an era where there is an abundance of information, but quality of information is scarce, really. And secondly, with such a wealth of data available, really anyone can kind of shape an opinion or find evidence to validate an idea. And it presents challenges because the first is that I think if you're somebody who's wanting to take a courageous idea out into the world, you can kind of experience idea paralysis, where, sifting through a huge volume of data in order to be able to find clarity really feels like a bit of an uphill battle. And the second is that there is this hurdle around how do you craft a story that's both courageous and universal that not only resonates and gets the attention of an audience, but actually motivates them to take action in this kind of sea of noise. So with your expertise in championing courageous ideas and weaving purpose-driven narratives, how might we crystallize these bold, courageous ideas and amplify them to cut through the noise?
How much time do you have on this one?
I've got all the time in the world, so as long as you're happy to hang out.
I mean, I just wrote a note on LinkedIn, for my weekly dose of courage called Dear Advertising. And it was...
I read it.
It was looking at, this world let me in 25 years ago. I had been studying it a lot longer. And I just think the narratives are still there, but we have to step back and honestly ask ourselves, am I adding to that noise and pollution? Am I real? I think leaders need to realize a little bit and put your idea into the context of where it's going to live. And when you're not there to defend that idea, does it have soul? Is it truly special? For 25 years, I've been studying story. And stories have beginnings, they've got middles, they've got ends, even 30-second stories, even 10-second stories. There's beginnings, there's middles to ends, at least to the stories that land, good stories, right? And coming back to what makes you special that might stir someone's soul. And by the way, it doesn't mean every single story is a, after school special or a Hallmark special. They're still selling that's involved, but are you truly making the life of somebody better? Are you adding to their life? And start there. And then because you're competing with so much data, we'll call stories data too. You're competing with so much data. Does your story have what it takes to really land and sink in? A lot of stories seem to look alike right now. I think our strategies for how we tell our stories, and this is maybe the advice I would give, vessels look very different than the stories themselves. A vessel might be you're walking down the aisle of the candy aisle, and the wrapper is the vessel, and the sweet stuff's on the inside. The vessel might be Barbie as a movie with the message on the inside. So I think we have to, it might be, I don't know if you've heard about Wrexham. Have you heard about Wrexham?
No, I haven't.
Welcome to Wrexham.
No.
So it's called Welcome to Wrexham. It's a TV show. Ryan Reynolds bought not just Ryan Reynolds, but a couple guys, they bought a soccer club in the lowest division. We're back to soccer. In the lowest division in Europe. They're a Wales team, one of the oldest clubs to ever play. They're documenting all of it, and they're working their way up. Meanwhile, all of Ryan Reynolds' brands are being marketed and advertised in the show. It's entertaining. It's fun. You want to watch it. My kids want to skip over ads. So the game has changed. One of my friends recently said, what if advertising wrote a note back to you? What would it say? Would it be okay for how we're treating it? So the idea of still putting your story out into the universe it's there. It's how you do it. How do you do it in a unique way? This is Blue Ocean 101, right? Let's put those stories in a unique way, in a special way, in different arenas. I'm trying not to give it all away because, like,
Yeah.
a lot of us is like, hey, we need to get you out of your house to experience something. That is an opportunity for advertising in the future. So I think
Absolutely.
to me, the data part
And to Courage Week.
is one piece. And to Courage Week, yes.
Well, because it's about bringing people together, right? It's about doing it differently. Yeah.
You're hired. When can you start?
Yeah. Today. I got my courage on.
No, but you're right. It really is about, again, I go back to the stop trying to be all things to all people. Find your 5%.
Yeah.
Find your 5% and then let them take it from there.
So Ryan, I want to invite you to, I guess, have a play in terms of what's possible for the future. And I'm calling this little section, the what is to what if section. Now, in a past conversation, you had spoken about the importance of what you referred to as spontaneous collisions, which are kind of the accidental interactions that happen traditionally in physical workspaces. However, as we all know, post-COVID, we've really seen the rise of this kind of new hybrid work landscape. And in the conversation I heard, you kind of expressed some concern that maybe we were losing some of the really important aspects of what it is to foster connection, collaboration, all of those sorts of things. That said, in another conversation, I heard you use an analogy around brands as being, I guess, like nations with citizenship. And to be specific, you were talking about Tesla, you were talking about Patagonia, and that they kind of possess this distinct citizenship. So what I'm curious to know is how can brands potentially harness this idea of citizenship and extend the space they are working in to, lots of different places in the community, whether it be homes, gyms, cafes. And so that in turn would then allow these kind of spontaneous collisions to still take place. So I know we're kind of doing the big vision and none of these things are happening as yet, but I was like, is this possible? And I wanted, I guess, to invite you to come into that vision with me and explore the potential of that unfolding paradigm.
Well, I love the exercise. Remember those like old encyclopedias?
Yeah.
When you'd look at a country and it was like national anthem, nation's bird, nation's mantra, right? Like it had all of this pride of what the country stood for.
Yeah.
If you did it for, look up Australia right now. Like, what's our mantra? What's our country's bird or animal?
Yeah.
Spirit animal.
Yeah.
To me, what are the 20 questions that you should answer about your nation? Your business is a nation. To me, these are just identity conversations about nailing your identity and getting clear on what you're all about. I don't feel today that a lot of brands that we're moving so fast that we have that clarity. And by the way, it could be a mom and pop restaurant all the way up to a Fortune 100 company that does the exercise, and call it a nation building exercise, because I think once you have what you clearly stand for, you can then audit, hey, are we honoring these citizens? And vice versa. Maybe it's the citizens are helping you come up with that, or you as the leader are coming up with that and taking it to the citizens and being like, is this the nation for you? And I don't mean it in a cold way. I mean it in a clear way.
Yeah.
If you're
Well, it comes back to purpose, doesn't it? Like, do I belong in this country, in this culture?
And to me, if you found a place you belong, like if I said to you, hey, Rebecca, I mean, like, you'd be perfect for Courage Week. Would you come to the States for it? If it's a year away, and I was going to say, there's only 50 seats. There's 50 seats. We're going to keep it intimate. I have to curate every seat because I have to make sure for sure that they belong, they're open-minded, they're willing to be vulnerable, and they want to lead. And they know that it's better to do it together. I'm playing around with this idea of, my logo is a lion. So like this concept of the pride in the pack, right? Like let's move as a pack. And I want lions to feel together. I want lions to think together. I want lions to do together. I want lions to lead together. And you have everything that we're looking for as someone that like should crush it in this pack. But there's only 50 seats. Now, to me, that's part of my nation building. That's part of the identity piece. That's part of me going, are you a good fit for this community or not? Maybe that's what brands need to be doing. Look at yourself as a community. What are the streets like in your community?
Yeah, and what are the potential collaborations within that country? So where you've got an organisation in alignment with the gym or in alignment with the cafe, and all of a sudden you've got this kind of dual orbit between the organisation and the community around it. And so, it's just an idea that I've wanted to lean into because I wonder if there is a possibility for this that allows remote working, but actually, it's no longer about being at work or not. It's actually a part of being a citizen of the brand.
Correct. And to me, remote work is a whole nother problem because it's just less opportunities for you to make sure your narrative is landing. Right. We have so much time inside our own minds, and yet we feel like we don't have any time whatsoever because our calendars are like 30 minutes,
Yeah.
30-minute meeting here. Got to go to the next
Tetris.
Zoom, got to go to the next. It is. And so we feel overwhelmed by that.
So as we come to the end of the conversation, is there anything you'd like to share with our audience that you haven't already spoken about today?
Honestly, it's just thank you. It doesn't go unnoticed to me that if you stuck around for the whole hour, that there's something in this conversation that you're exploring and maybe you want to be a part of, or you want more courage, or some people, let's just call it what it is. They were out of here in 4 minutes. They're like, hit the button. And that's okay. But if you've made it here to the end, maybe you're on a run or you're in your car, or maybe you're on an elliptical, who knows where you are, you're at work, then I would ask myself, why? Why did you stay to the end? What is going on in your life, in your world? What can you take from this conversation that maybe you can bring into the workplace? Or what question do you need to ask yourself in the mirror? Is there some place where maybe you're lying to yourself and you're not happy where you wish you were, or maybe you should give yourself a compliment because you were courageous and you are on your path, and it might be messy, but you're on your way. And so I would honor why you stayed. I'd ask yourself why you stayed, and I wouldn't let this conversation be the end of it. I would explore it more. And like I said, I'm always grateful when people stick around and maybe there's something that we're talking about and their mind goes where it needs to go and they get energy from that, right? I always want to be someone you gain energy from, not that someone that drains their energy. So I don't think there's anything else to say other than thank you. I appreciate you sticking around for the conversation. And I hope if you like this conversation, then maybe there's something in the courage arena for you.
Ryan, it has been such a joy, as always, it always is, to have a conversation with you. Are you able to share with our listeners where we can find more information, maybe find the Return on Courage book, keep up to date with Courage Week, which just sounds so exciting, and also these new books that you've got up your sleeve?
No sleeves today. It's hot out here.
No sleeves,
right?
it's hot there.
But,
yeah.
So, one, if you haven't read Return on Courage, it's available at returnoncourage.com. It's also available on Amazon, Kindle version. If you like my voice, there's an Audible. That's probably a good place to start. Please reach out and follow me on LinkedIn under Ryan Berman. I think my tag is Courageous Ideas. You can go to couragebrands.com or keep it simple and just go to ryanberman.com and hear my story.
Thank you so much for joining me on the DNA of Purpose podcast, Ryan Berman. Thank you, as always, for dedicating your time to the DNA of Purpose podcast. As we conclude today's episode, I invite you to extend the conversation online. Feel free to reach out via LinkedIn or follow along at Rebecca Maklad, that is Maklad on Instagram, where we're crafting a tapestry of stories, reflections, tools, and insights to empower your purpose-driven leadership strategy. I love feedback, and we always welcome guest suggestions. Should today's episode ignite a spark within you, reviews really do help us to continue to attract the world's most prominent purpose-driven leaders as our guests. And if you know somebody who would benefit from one of our episodes, then share that story with abundance. A big thanks to Supernova Tribe, who produce this podcast with style, and Guide Your Light, a network for podcasts with purpose.